Hi everyone, I'm Saleha and this is Chai, Chat and Community. Tonight I have a very special guest joining me. Someone I have known since she was a baby, 2 years old. And she is very, very special and now she's all grown up. And we are discussing a very, very important subject tonight. As parents, we always worry about our children. You know, it's a given when they go to high school. And one question that plagues our mind all the time is subject choice. What is it that my child should choose when they are in year 10? For many, it's a family decision, or if it's you are like me, you just let your child choose. Is it the right one or the wrong one? Only time can tell. So, Ananya Bose, my darling girl, who joins me tonight to discuss subject choices in high school, how to decide and figure out if this is what your child wants to do in the future. But before we dive deep down into the questions, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting tonight, and I pay my respects to the elders, past, present, and emerging. Ananya, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much. It is an honor to be on this show, Sally Mashi. You are such a big inspiration for me, and I can't wait to share my tips for subject selection today.
Thank you. So before we start, can you tell us something about yourself? Because I know you as a 2-year-old and a 10-year-old, and then suddenly the years in between have just vanished.
Absolutely. So my name is Ananya Bose, and I graduated high school from McRobertson Girls High School as school captain in 2022. So it's been about 2 years since I've graduated, and I'm currently studying a Bachelor of Science at the University of Melbourne, which is very exciting. And at the moment, I am a tutor, so I'm doing high school tutoring from year 8 to year 11. And having been in the high school system myself, I know a lot about, subject selections and how daunting it can be. So any questions and everything is very welcome, and I'm looking forward to chatting about it tonight.
Okay, thank you. So you said you are a tutor. So what age group are you? You said you tutor high school students. Is it from year 7 onwards?
Yeah, so mainly year 8 for selective entry preparation for the 4 selective entry schools in Victoria. Plus, I tutor year 9, year 10, and year 11. So the main subjects that I tutor are, of course, maths and English at that middle year school level.
Yeah.
And for VCE, I tutor biology, chemistry, mathematical methods, and general maths. So it's definitely subjects. Yes, quite a few there. These subjects I was lucky enough to score quite highly in the top 2%, and now I'm very, very passionate about teaching it to the incoming students, to the incoming generation. So yes, it's lots of fun to tutor that at the moment. And I also worked as a presenter. I used to go around schools in Victoria, like even rural schools as well, to teach them about study skills and subject selections and how to study best, memorization techniques, what to expect when you get to VCE. So I used to do that as well. But now at the moment, I'm focusing my time on students from year 8 to 11 with these particular subjects.
Whoa, that's a lot.
Yes, it is definitely. I have to be quite time managed for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know amongst us South Asians, we have this thing about tuition. I read a lot of posts on community pages where parents are asking for tutors for their primary age students. What do you think is the right age? Because as you know, I mean, maybe you don't know. So Sammy never got any tutoring, none whatsoever. But Tintin did do tutoring, and she started in year 11, and that too for maths, and then year 12. And then she tutored too, as you know, she was tutoring VC students. So, what is the right age? I mean, should primary students need tutoring at all?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a question that I get a lot as a tutor as well. When is the right age for my kid to do it? Should I do it for maths? Should I do it for English? And, it's a very valid thing. And especially for me as like my parents had come from India, as immigrants. And it was tough because the education system is so completely different, and just understanding it takes so much out of you. as I have a younger sister, so for a first-time child, it was really difficult to understand all these things. And what I think now, having been through the system, is the junior school tuition is not really required, because I think what I did was, my parents really, really had an emphasis on extracurricular activities. And so every week I was having a new interest. I was like, Mom, I want to do dancing, I want to do art, I want to do singing, I want to do piano. I think at one point there was the flute as
And
well.
you're fantastic at all of them. All of them.
Thank you. And they were so supportive that they're like, yes, absolutely, go for it, and they put me into all these classes. And that's what enriched me so much as a student, and I can see that as I went through high school, part of my character was 100% attributed to these extracurricular experiences that I had as a kid. And I've been saying the same with my sister as well, who's doing debating and public speaking at such a young age. Because the thing is, if you like, tuition at too young of an age can have the risk of deterring students from studying completely. And I think that's one of the worst things that can happen, where these kids in year 3, year 4, even year 5, they're so tender and young, and they're still experiencing things for the first time. And then what can tend to happen is putting them in tuition makes them think that studying is this really mundane, boring thing that they end up hating. And if they're hating that in year 5 and 6, they've got such a long way to go. Studying doesn't get any easier from there.
Absolutely. For the rest
You
of your
know,
life.
right? For the rest of your life, you're constantly studying. And what can happen is that it leads to burnout by the time you're in year 10, year 11. And that is the worst thing to happen. You want to be at your peak then. So
Yes.
the way that I like to describe it is it's going up a mountain really slowly. So I'm not someone who would say that, oh, don't do tuition at all, I'm anti-tuition or anything. I think tuition is a great opportunity for, kids who need that extra support or are preparing for things like scholarship exams or selective entry exams, whatever it might be,
But
where
that's
that
not in primary school though, right?
yeah, absolutely. So something like selective entry is something where it's 7 and 8, which is when I kind of started the tuition. But something when I hear parents say about year 2, year 3, year 4, I just think that they can channel their energy more into extracurricular pursuits, because that's where the kid is going to enjoy. And byproduct of that, because they're enjoying these extra interests and stuff, when they go to study, they are thinking, okay, this is, it's not too bad, because they aren't doing it for such prolonged hours. So I guess the thing that I'm trying to say is, starting too young can actually be more detrimental than beneficial. So I started tuition in around year 7, but that was only because of selective entry preparation that I'd done. And unless you really, really need extra support or anything, I would really say that extracurricular is the main way to go in those formative years, because that's what builds the character, and that's what you want, as you continue on your journey into life. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, there is a question which I'm going to show you. Chris, thank you for watching. How do you raise the importance of extracurricular activities with migrant parents who are only fixated on academics? Correct. This was going to be my question. Thank you, Chris. We
Thank you
read
so
each
much.
other's minds too much.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much for that question. And it's a real concern, because, we all want our kids to do well, and, academically, and academics is important, of course. But I would say that if you think about it like this, extracurriculars is what makes you a better person itself, right? And believe it or not, things like medicine, things like law, things like teaching, engineering, all these professions that your kids want to go to when they finish high school, 90% of the time, they're also looking at these things that build you as a character, right? Yes, you have your ATAR, yes, you have your marks, and yes, you have your, academic profile, but your differentiating part is going to be through extracurriculars. So really what my thing is if you want to stand out, the way to go about that is extracurriculars. So honing their interests, honing their passions, things that they enjoy doing, right? And in the younger years, what I felt like is just trying everything. I think there's the quote, jack of all trades, master of none. And I think that works so well as a kid, because you're not worried about failing it, because it's fun, right? It's enjoyable to do. And then when you're heading along your middle school journey, year 5, year 6, you start to see, okay, what am I actually good at? And you can hone those passions and hone those interests in, and really make it part of your character, right? For me personally, I just did singing and piano as, I just wanted to see how it's like, you see your favorite singers on TV. It's like, I want to try that. And so I did. And I found out that I really enjoyed it. And piano, I loved it. I really, really loved it. And that was the start of a decade-long journey of classical piano, something which even in my interviews for uni scholarships, for exchange opportunities, for leadership positions, when I applied for school captain, that's what they look at. They see, how has your child been able to, be in a team for sports? How have they been able to collaborate? How have they been able to build their empathetic skills? How have they been able to build their time management skills? These are all implicit things that you're gaining from doing extracurriculars. So yes, I understand, I have migrant parents as well who always wanted me to do well academically. I wanted to do well academically, but to enhance my character and to enhance me as a person in the world, to get more opportunities, extracurriculars was the way to differentiate myself and put myself in a position of opportunity as well. So yeah, I hope that
Thank you.
answers.
Yes, it does. And while listening to you, I'm reminded, and I think I've talked about it to a few people before. I was once interviewing a managing director of one of the big four,
Yeah. Wow.
and he said to me that when he's interviewing freshers to come in as trainees, the only thing he wants to see is extracurricular activities, empathetical skills, team building skills, and customer service.
Yes.
And he said, I do that because we can teach them what is expected at work, but how to deal with stakeholders, including team members, and deal with the rest of the people, that is what is important. Sometimes
Absolutely.
it's not academics that employers are looking at. I know at the end of the day, we are only looking at, okay, my child will do math, science, and that's a way to a medical degree, or that's a way to a law degree. But I think even when you're in uni, you will have so many group assignments. How you work together as a team is so much more important, isn't it?
Absolutely, 100%. And I can say, I remember I was quite academically inclined as I was heading through high school, but now being on the other side of it, I can say with such certainty that a lot of my opportunities that I've got is from my extracurriculars as I built myself up. And again, that's exactly as you're saying, that's what employers look for. That's what interviewers look for when they're looking for a spot. There's so much competition. How are you going to separate yourself?
Absolutely. Yep. So I'm going to play the devil's advocate here. What happens when your child is in primary school, and as a parent, I mean, one, as migrant parents, most of us I didn't know the education system here. Yep. And so I had to relearn it. What happens as a migrant parent? You don't know the education system. And secondly, you don't know the language, or you're not proficient in the language. What do you do then for your child?
Absolutely. I think for me and my parents, we had to really learn it the hard way, in the sense that we had to go through and then make the mistake and then learn from it. But what I can say from, my sister's perspective now, having known it and trying to learn it, it really was connecting with people who had been through that system before, who has gone through that journey. And I think that's the biggest part of my passion as a tutor. I don't want any other parent or any other family or any other child to go through the things that we had to, where we had to learn everything from scratch, right from scratch, not having any knowledge, not having any resources, not even having any idea of, what is an ATAR, what is a study score, what is, VCE, all of these baseline things we had no knowledge of, and we just had to learn as we were going. Now, in terms of how to learn from it, I would really suggest the amount of networking that you can get in terms of who has been through that process before, someone who's been through that high school journey, whether it might, current tutors in the area. Being in these forums, people like you who are connecting so many different communities of all ages and of all, nationalities and backgrounds, that's the best forum that you can get, because you know that they are meaning it from a place of heart. We're sharing the same values, part of this community. And that's why I'm so passionate that I would love to help anyone who is going through the same thing, where they're unsure of the education system and they're not sure where to go next. So I'm always someone who is very, very happy to help. But overall, I would say open forums for VC discussion pages, and communities like this.
I'm going to hold you to that. You'll be my guest many times. All
Oh,
right, here
absolutely.
you go. Another question for you, Tunka. Oh, Ananya, sorry.
Yes.
If you're a mediocre student at school, how do you deal with peer pressure around you? And also, pressure from parents. I think more than peers, I think it is parents and family, because you need to prove, I think for many of us as migrants, we need to prove to family back home that, we've moved to a different country and, we've moved for our children, and look how our children are doing. So
Absolutely.
much
And
better. That's a lot of pressure.
it is. It is. Well, I'll first address the first part of that question with how do you deal with peer pressure around you? And that was definitely an aspect. There are so many kids, people trying for this school and trying for that school, and this person's got this ATAR, and, this person wants to study this at university. It's always going to be around you. But really, the way to deal with it is just in the sense that it's just an acceptance of that's always going to be there. When you're in the workforce, there's always going to be that comparison of this person doing this person's doing this, they've got this much, all of that stuff. But as parents, the way that my parents supported me, I can only speak from my behalf, but my parents always said to me that you have to be confident in your own abilities and your uniqueness in the world, right? And again, I come back to the idea of extracurriculars, finding what I was good at, what was niche to me, what made me, what made me unique. That's only for you, right? And for your child. And I think spending those formative years finding what is your passion, what is the things that you enjoy doing, that's what's going to have more of a self-identity as a child. And that's not going to, when you're with your peers, you're all celebrating the things that you're good at individually. But again, it is much easier said than done, because peer pressure is something that does get to all of us. All I can say is, from a parent perspective, is just encouraging the child and encouraging your children to to find their own niche and to find the things that they enjoy the most, and support them with that. Now, in terms of, okay, but well, what if it's the parents that the pressure is coming from? And that the pressure, I think the way that I explain it to my students is that the pressure is really coming from a place of love most of the times, in the sense that they have moved from another country, again, to provide a better life for you most of the time, right? That they want you to do better. My parents came here looking for better opportunities, and they've got better jobs, and just a better life overall. And they wanted their children to grow up in that environment as well. And so the pressure is, one, from a child's point of view, when you're a teenager, when you can understand these things, is understanding that it is from a place of love. The second thing is, as parents, it's having a little bit more faith in the children, that they are in an
Thank you. That's what I wanted to hear.
yeah, exactly, right? That, these children know a lot more than you think they do, in the sense, and not in a patronizing way, but just as an honest perspective, that they
Yeah,
know a lot
absolutely.
about the world. They are the rate of information that is coming at them is a lot, and can be overwhelming sometimes, but it does make them more informed people and teenagers, right? And so having that faith in your child that they will do the things, and we as parents, it is the job to support them and guide them in the right directions. They will find that solace, and then that pressure is something that's like released from them, and they can be like, okay, I know that this is the direction that I want to go in. And as parents, if you're saying, yes, here are the pros and cons, rather than like pigeonholing it into a place, that is what helps the child the most, fostering that loving environment, that of guidance, rather than pressure and pigeonhole. And again, it might be very, very simple for me to say, as someone who has, been through the system, but it honestly, I've seen in these kids that I've tutored, and having spoken to parents who were very, very, pressurizing, or they really wanted a specific goal for their children, talking from a place of understanding and empathy, where, like, your kid knows, they know, and let's have like a two-way conversation and a listening, empathetic conversation. that helps more because it allows the child to have confidence in their own abilities and the parents to have confidence in their child to come to an ultimate goal of, to do well, really.
So, Chris, I know I'll share your question a bit later. I'm just going to go from primary school to secondary. So, the pressure of choosing subjects starts from year 8, 9 onwards, because you will have to choose subjects which will define your future. And irrespective of what we say, 8-hour scores matter so much to us, because if you don't care, your friends care.
Absolutely.
I was asked so many times why my children are not doctors, very sweetly. And then it was like, oh, but mine. And to us, it does. I think as migrants, we need to prove to ourselves, parents, when I say ourselves, it's parents, that, we've done the right thing by moving, and look at our children, they're doing so well. So when do you start choosing subjects? Year 10, isn't it? Or is it year 9?
So at my school at McRob, we started choosing it in year 9. So if your school allows you to take accelerated subjects in year 11, and what that means for anyone watching is that some schools allow the opportunity of doing 1 or 2 year 12 subjects in year 11, right? And it helps perhaps reduce the pressure in year 12. And so what I did, because of that, I chose my subjects in year 9. And regardless of if your school allows that as well or not, year 9 is probably the best time to start looking into subjects. What is the main direction that your child wants to go in? What are their passions? What are they good at? And I'll talk about this as well when, if we're talking about specific subjects and how to choose that. But really, when you're looking for a career as a child, and there's such a big world out there, a lot of the time, so again, as South Asian background, it can often be pigeonholed to just medicine, law, and engineering. But trust me, there is such a huge world out there. There are so many opportunities, and that's why I say year 9 is the best point to just slowly enter yourself into that world, right? Where what is something that I'm good at? What do I like? What do I see myself doing, 10 years down the line? And that's okay if you don't have the answers, but just a general sense of direction will help you inform what are the subjects that I want to choose and what is the career that I want to go down. So yeah, in terms of answering your question, around year 9 and 10 is the time that you should be researching the subjects that you think you're going to choose based on what you want to choose to do post high school.
So basically, you've answered my question. I was going to ask you, how do you choose your subject? So
absolutely,
let's talk about, let's give you as an example. And how did you choose your subjects, and what subjects did you choose?
Absolutely, yes. So I chose, in terms of the subject selection, I was doing mine during COVID years, which was already overwhelming itself. But basically, to give you a little bit of context, I have always grown up wanting to pursue a career in medicine, and not to do with parental pressure, very much to do with an experience that I had with my younger sister who was born very premature. And that experience was something that stuck to me. And, ever since then, I've just wanted to always do medicine. So I always knew I wanted to go down a healthcare or a science route. And so that did inform a lot of my decisions in terms of what are the prerequisites that I need to study medicine or healthcare or science? And so automatically that was taken into consideration. And so I chose biology and I chose chemistry straight away. And the other prerequisites meaning what is required by the universities, was mathematical methods and, of course, English. So there I have already 4 subjects chosen for me, in the sense like that is what is going to be directly aligned.
And English is compulsory anyway, isn't it?
Exactly. English is compulsory, and mathematical methods is, for us, it was compulsory at the time. It might have changed right now, but English, mathematical methods, biology, and chemistry already taken care of for me. And then I had 2 subjects which I could choose. And the other 2 that I had was accounting and further mathematics. Now, the reason a lot of, I remember I told my grandma and my grandpa this back in Delhi, and they were so confused. They're like, oh no, like, you're choosing science. How can you be doing accounting at the same time? And I remember even my parents, they were like, they're so used to science, commerce, and arts. And both my parents did science. And they're thinking, how
Yeah,
can you?
that's what we are all used to. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. 3 streams. And mum and dad said, how can you choose commerce when you're doing science? Like, how is this possible? And I chose accounting because it was one of my hobbies during year 9 and 10. I started getting really interested in finance and becoming independent financially. That was always been a goal of mine. And I found out I really enjoyed it. So I did it in year 10. Loved the subject, absolutely loved the subject, and it ended up being one of my highest scoring. I think I scored in the top 1% of the state. Loved that subject. But that's just an example of, that was something that had built up as a hobby, and then I ended up choosing it as a subject. That's my thing. What you're good at and what you like, if you can get the overlap of that, that is how you choose your subjects, right? And that's what I found with accounting, and the last subjects that I did was further maths, which was also very much on data maths and financial maths, which I really did enjoy as well. So those were my subjects. The subjects that I did in year 11, so a year before, were biology and accounting. And the other 4 subjects, chemistry, methods, further, and English, I completed in year 12.
And it's overwhelming, isn't it, to do all the subjects in year 12? So it's always a good idea to do some subjects in year 11, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think it was the best decision. It was a very stressful year 11 at that point. We were in COVID and lockdown, and there was a lot of things going on, but it really did help ease the pressure in year 12, because, in year 12, you're also navigating your university applications and your interviews and your scholarship applications. There's a lot going on. And I was also a school captain, so I had that leadership aspect as well. So lots was happening in year 12. So I'm really glad that I was able to complete those 2 subjects in year 11. And I encourage that, even if it's one you can do, because it also gives you a taste of what VCE is like. And I'm going to be very, very honest. The jump from year 10 to year 11 is quite a steep one. And that's why, as a tutor, it is one of my I literally have it in my lesson plans at the end of the year. I dedicate almost 2 lessons just to give them a context of what year 11 is like, building good study habits, building good time management skills, stress management. It's so underrated. All of these things, because it's a huge jump as you head into year 11 and 12. And choosing subjects can feel really, really overwhelming, and you want to try to make that right decision in year 9 and 10. And that's why I suggest a lot of research and a lot of thought, and which is the next point that I want to go on to, not fixating and focusing too much on things like scaling. How much does this subject scale? All that stuff.
Okay, explain that to me.
Yeah, so scaling, for anyone who doesn't know, is, and my parents had no idea what scaling was. They looked at me and like, what is that? Basically, every single subject, statistically, what the main authority, VCAA, it's called the Victorian Curriculum of Assessment Authority, who head this whole thing, the education system, they look at how difficult it is to score an average mark in a particular subject, right? How difficult is it to score an average mark in a particular subject? For example, one of the hardest subjects to take in VCE is something called specialist maths. It is a very,
Yes,
very
I
difficult,
know.
right? Absolutely. So the statistics, so they do some complex statistics, they find out that it is much harder to score a 30, which is like an average score in specialist maths, compared to a subject like further maths, which is another type of maths. And based on that relative difficulty, they do something called scaling. So they are saying that it's much harder to score a 30 in specialist math than it is in further maths. So therefore, specialist maths is going to be scaled up higher. Now, what a lot of parents and students get misguided by is they say, oh my gosh, so if I get a 30 in specialist maths, it's going to scale up to a 42. And they're like, oh, that's great. That's amazing. You're just getting free marks. It's awesome. It's going to help boost my ATAR so much. And yes, to an extent it will, but should not be the sole factor that you are choosing a subject because of scaling. And I have seen some of my friends and past students who have chosen specialists in year 11 found it extraordinarily difficult, extremely, extremely difficult. They couldn't even keep up with the content of the subject, and they only chose it because it scaled so highly. And then they put all of their emphasis into this one subject, thinking it would scale up and boost their ATAR significantly, but it completely dropped off the other parts of their ATAR because they weren't focusing equally on their subjects. And it can be quite detrimental if you do that, because focusing on things like scaling is so arbitrary. The sole purpose of you choosing a subject should be on the things, if am I good at it, and do I like it. Those are the two things that I would say hinge on your success in a subject, because scaling is something you can't really control. You cannot control the inherent difficulty of the subject, nor can you control the statistical variation of scaling. So that's what I would suggest with that, not to hyperfixate on things like scaling. One thing I would say, though, languages do scale, and they scale rightly so, because languages are inherently difficult to learn. That's just a natural phenomenon. And I have seen friends who were really inclined towards languages, and that scaling worked to their advantage. But again, they didn't choose the language because it scaled. They chose the language because they were good at it, and the scaling worked in their advantage that way. So trying to think of it as scaling as just a supplementary thing rather than a sole factor to base the subject choice decision
on. Okay, so my last question, and then I'm going to ask, I'll show you what Chris wants to know. So how has choosing the right subject in school helped you at uni? I know what all you're going to do now, and I'm so proud of you. So proud of you.
Thank you so much. And I have to say that one thing I will say is you have been an incredible inspiration for my hobbies as well. Like, I started writing largely because of you. I saw how much impact you were making on the community in your previous jobs and through your community work, and English, and through there, English became one of my top scoring and one of my favorite subjects. And I have to attribute a lot of that to you, because reading your writings, it really is. It's so special. So I have to have a shout out to Sally Mushy for that. But in terms of how it's helped me, subject selection. Again, when I was in year 9, year 10, my only foresight was, oh my gosh, I need to get this ATAR, academics and everything. And it's so common. That is very, very common. But one thing I can say is, yes, of course, subject selection has helped me a lot, in terms of what I'm now studying in university, science, and then hopefully medicine as well along the way. But what I would say is accounting. Like, for example, I chose accounting in high school, and I never thought I would ever use that again, ever. But it is catapulted me into opportunities like doing a financial markets course from Yale University. Like, that opportunity would have never come to me if I hadn't have, done accounting in high school. And I wouldn't even know if I liked finance or if I liked things like accounting and economics if I hadn't have done that in high school and even just tried it out there. But overall, subject selection is largely driven by what you want to pursue after high school. So there is going to be that, streamline, I guess, sense of direction where, this is...
And also a pathway to your future, isn't it?
Exactly. Like, it's usually a pathway of some sort. And that's not to put the pressure on students that you can't get where you want to be only through your ATAR. I promise you that you can get to anywhere you want to be, any career you want to do, any opportunity, job. You can get there if you have the mindset, and I can guarantee you that. But yes, the traditional pathway is through, going through high school, then going through university, and that particular degree. And the way that that's helped me has been extraordinary, because I was quite set on from early on that I wanted to do something in healthcare, and I always chose that and made sure that it aligned accordingly. But overall, ensure that you are taking these opportunities, like taking that little risk. Like, I was always worried, should I do accounting? Is it related to anything I want to do? Should I take this subject? I'm not sure. If you're good at it, and again, if you like it, go for it, because I'm sure that that's what's going to help you get to your end goal, and it might give you some incredible opportunities along the way as well.
Thank you, Ananya. I'm going to show you a question from Chris. Yeah. I won't read it out because I'm sure you can.
How would you define success? Do you reckon social media has altered the way we view success? Well, this is something I'm very, very passionate about, and I could go on forever, but I'm going to keep it quite succinct. But success to me has been such an up and down journey, right? at my version of success, if you ask me, 3 or 4 years ago, would be very much based on academics and how I perceived myself in terms of what I was doing with studies. But now, having life experience and having learned a lot about the world, success is really your own metric. It is how, for me, it is the person that I want to be for my friends, for my family. My family is my rock. Who I want to be as a person, and what is my impact on the world? How am I helping people that when I was a child and when I was growing up, didn't have access to these resources? So success to me is, one, being the best version of yourself, whatever that may be, not with the comparison with the standards of society and pressure, external pressure. It's really who you want to be for your family and your loved ones, but also what impact you want to have for the future generations to come. And for social media, that is a huge thing. I'm a bit of an odd teenager in that way, where I try to remove myself as much as I can from it. It is a powerful thing. Social media is a very, very powerful thing that can be used for incredible things.
And everybody wants to show off.
Yes, absolutely.
It's an unreal world that we live in,
Absolutely. And the thing with social media is it is a highlight reel. You are just showing the maximum high points of your life. But unfortunately, we are human, and a life is so non-linear. It goes up and down, up and down. And, no one wants to be vulnerable to show the low parts of their life. But I think it is really hard, and I have so much empathy for especially the teenagers who are in high school right now, with things like, artificial intelligence and even more of a social media presence than I had when I was in high school. Like, I don't think I had a social media account till I was in almost year 9, really. So, and I've seen, the kids that I'm tutoring now, year 6, year 7s are having access to Instagram and Facebook and Snapchat.
How?
I know, it's shocking and it's scary. And the thing with that comes with a lot of challenges, because they are, these are young minds, they're neuroplastic minds, that so much information is coming at them that they're unable to process that as quickly as a mature brain would be able to. And what I have seen is that is implanting warped views of success. It is really, really warping the idea of what a successful teenager looks like, what a successful adult looks like, and what a successful career, relationship, friendship, all these things look like. And I think it is so, so, so important to regulate and to take some distance from that and to step back, because that is not how the real world operates at all. Social media is very much a bubble. Yeah, there's powers of it, again, like your platform, that you're using it for the benefit, for the overall benefit of the world. But at the same time, you also have the power of it really making you feel horrible and constantly comparing to millions of people across the world with absolutely unrealistic standards. So I have a lot of empathy for the teenagers who are going through this now, going through high school. And I would suggest that having that open conversation and that relationship with your parents is so, so, so important. It's more important than ever. I'm so grateful that I have such a loving mum and dad who I tell everything to. I tell everything to them, and they've provided me that conversation and safe space to talk about these things. And they're, from their life experience, I take a lot of solace in that, knowing that, they've been through life, they've been through really, really tough things, and they can offer me a really unique and fresh perspective of how to view the world. And I think that helps strip away that filtered reality that social media is showing you constantly. So it's very, very important that parents are there to guide their children through this really tough period of, change of life, as you're heading into adolescence, which is already.
I think as parents, we also have a duty towards our children.
Absolutely. I think
create a safe space for them to come and talk to us. So
absolutely. And that's what helps you carve your own path of success. And that's the thing that I've learned the most in the last 2 years, through the challenges and the tough times and the good times, everything in between, that you are the only person who can carve your own path of success. And that will look very, very different compared to everyone else. And that's unique. That's the special thing about being human, that you are making your own mark specifically for yourself and for the rest of the world to see. Yeah.
Thank you, Ananya. As always, such a pleasure talking to you. And all the best for your trip to England.
Thank you. Thank you
and I will talk to you and see you when you come back.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on, and it is such an honor to be part of this.
Oh,
I hope I've helped somebody who is watching as they navigate through quite a tough but exciting period of high school for their children as well. So thank you so much. Thank you so much.
bye.
Take care.
Okay,
Bye
bye.
bye.
Bye.